The next step is to create tulip petals. In general, we will have 6 petals. 3 ones that will be located closer to the center and 3 the outer petals. That is 3 internal and 3 external. What do we need for this? You will of course need a tulip petal veiner. The cutter will be needed. You need a clay called porcelain. Zinc white for dyeing clay. The scissors will be useful. And a stack of balls. Big ball and smaller. Well, now of course we'll get started. What are we going to start doing? We will start with clay staining. Let's take a small amount to start with. This is called porcelain not yet painted. You need to wrinkle it a little to make it flexible. And I want to say right away. Before working with clay, be sure to wipe everything first. The table, tools, veiners, hands must be thoroughly washed and wiped with damp wipes. Or wipe everything, wash thoroughly. Why is this all done? So that there are no lint, no dust particles, nothing. Anything can cling to especially white clay. And it will cling if you have any lint, say, or dust left. It will be very visible. Therefore, we need to avoid this. I've already wiped it all, washed it all. Do the same. So, once as we crushed clay, we need to add a small amount of paint into the clay. We will use again zinc white. I take a small amount. This is enough. Don't overdo it. We don't need to add too much white. Why? Because all transparency will disappear. Well, it can become quite fragile. We add a small amount. That will be enough for me. And the clay will become whiter and the transparency of the clay will remain. So, we knead the clay well. Now I will interfere and now we will make petals. That's all. We knot it. Now let's take a film, a rolling pin and start creating the petals already. We take a small amount of clay. This will be enough. I will do by 1 petal. Do not immediately roll out into many petals, but I do by 1 petal. So, look. If the clay is soft, then it is better. Before rolling out the petal, I go through with baby powder like this. I have baby powder. You may use Johnson's Baby or any other. You can use starch, but since toning will then be with an oil paint, it is best to either avoid starch, use powder or talcum powder, or then peel off the starch well so that it does not remain afterwards. Otherwise it will clog the paint later. So, roll out. I take a cutter. My cutter is metal, ordinary. It can be shaped as you like. I shaped it to fit the shape of a veiner approximately. If you have cutters specifically for veiners, then this is great. So, cut out. We remove the excess. What should be done now? Now you definitely need to go along the edge of the petal with your finger while thinning not the petal but the edge of the petal itself. There must be a thickening at the base of the petal. That is, the base of the petal must be thicker than the edge of the petal. The middle of the petal should be thicker than the edge. That is, it turns out that the thickening occurs at the base of the petal and the middle of the petal is thicker than the edges of the petal themselves. Well, the approximate thickness as I roll by hand is 0.5 mm. Slightly more. So what do I do next? I walk gently with talcum powder. The same thing I'm doing with veiner. I process so that the petal does not stick later. although veiners are good because clay itself does not stick to it. If the clay is very soft, fresh, then it can stick, so I reinsure not to stick. On the reverse side, we also go through carefully with talcum powder and powder. So, what do we do next? Look, put it carefully in the mold. Look, mine is shorter, so I pull it like this, shape it under the shape of the veiner, so that the edge of the base touches the veiner and the edge of the petal. So, we press and see what happens. It turns out here's such a flower. What else do I want to do? I need more likely. I want to make the desired petal shape. I want to bend it a little. Give it more volume. What will I do for this? We take a stack of balls. One ball less. Let's measure it now. So here 1 centimeter. This is a smaller ball. Here about 2 centimeters. 2 centimeter ball. Now I take a large ball and hold the base of the petal like this and walk here. I make a deepening. That is, I give an additional bend at the base of the petal. And I want to walk along the edge here. Again, hold on to the petal so it does not come off. I make a depression in the petal. I add an extra volume. And I do it not on my arm but on the veiner. Why am I doing this on the veiner? To preserve all the veins, the drawing. Inside, of course, the drawing is removed a little because I walk with a ball, but the outer side of the petal remains with the texture. That is, the drawing will be very clearly visible. So, right here. Now let's align and see what happens. So, I added some volume to the petals. The base, or rather the outer side of the petal, along the edge. In this way. Look. And now you need to leave this petal to dry out. Look. This will be the inner petal, the one closer to the middle. We will make 3 such petals without wire, without a frame. We'll simply glue them to the base, to the pistil with stamens, and we will make the 3 outer. We will simply glue them to the base, to the pistil with stamens, and we will make the 3 outer petals with wire, with a frame so that they keep their shape better. Here, therefore, I do these petals without wire, and I give them an extra volume. It is the edge. I give the shape more voluminous. For what? In order to give the shape to the petals of a tulip inside it. I make 2 more of these petals and show them. Come on, I'll first show you how I'm going to do with the wire, and then I'll make the rest of the petals behind the scenes. So, I leave this petal to dry, and it is desirable, what else to do, so that this edge, the base of the petal, was raised. To do this, if you put it in a dryer or even leave it on a veiner, it is better to attach a napkin. I'll show you now. Take a napkin, for example, a small amount. It was folded like this several times. We put it carefully, and at the same time it turns out the edge of the petal, the base rises. Don't overdo it, of course, so that the bend is too big. But here's a corner to give the desired shape, and then the petals really is in the process of assembly, of course. Everyone, do the next petal. We are making the outer petal. We take again the amount of clay we need. Here in the outer petals, we will have to make a little more thickening, and it is at the base of the petal so that later we can insert the wire. So, now I'll walk a little. So now we roll it out and cut it out. Here, look, the base of one petal is even more than 1.5 millimeters. Somewhere almost 1 millimeter. That is, here we need more thickening. So now, we do the same. We go along the edge of the petal, thinning it. You can stretch the shape a little like this with your finger, give it the desired one. Now, let's walk with talcum powder. Turn it over carefully. We do the same. And now we imprint it on the veiner. Let's tighten up a little bit. So, and we print. So, see, first we will insert the wire. We need to give the desired volume to the petal. We will do everything practically the same. Look, I walk in the center of the petal with a large ball, giving the depression I need. And here, the outer edges of the petal, all the same I will bend a little inward, I will walk with the ball. Press gently, try. If the clay is very fresh and soft, it may tear. Therefore, either the petal needs to be windy, left for a few seconds, for 10 seconds. In this case, 10-20 seconds depending on the freshness of the clay. The petal will wind up a little and it will already be easier to work with the stack. So, but now we will walk this side a little, but I will bend it with my hands. Use your fingers to the other side. Now we will try. Look. Like this, by washing my fingers, I gently create a bend in the other direction. We bend. I will not use the stack here. Why? Because then the texture will disappear. Here the petal goes inside and here it goes outward. That is outward. So look. So bend. Carefully. Here is what happens. Such a form. You can walk here a little more. So now let's see what happens. Now we need to attach a wire to the base of the petal. I will use white wire. Now I'll show you which one. So, number 24. You can use number 26 a little thinner. I have number 24 and number 28. Number 28 is quite thin. It will not keep the shape well. And since we need a frame, I will use a thicker wire. Cut out. I make, or rather, small cuts. Now we need 3 pieces. What will we do? Latex glue will be needed. Gently dip the latex glue into the wire and insert it into the base of the petal. Gently twisting movements like this. And we insert it to a depth of no more than 0.5 cm, preferably 5 mm, even a little less, so that the wire is not very visible. That's it. After that we need to put the petal to dry. You can give the desired shape with napkins or something else again. That's all. Leave it to dry and make 2 more of these petals with wire. These will be outer petals. And another 2 extra lobe, which will be located inside of a tulip. That's all. A total of 6 petals should be 3 with wires and 3 without wires. That's all. You do the same, and then after drying we will start toning. So now we start tinting the petals. So look, since we have a Rembrandt tulip, it has a very interesting toning. Staining is like such streaks and stripes. I will now show you how I will do it. There are veins of different colors. There are from the lightest, say red-orange, to, for example, burgundy tones. Today we will paint such lighter colors, so I will show you how we will do it. First, you need to create a palette. I have a foil base for the palette. Look, I have paint number 5. This orange red is most likely the color. It will be my basis. We will apply color in 2 steps. Then I take quinacridone red. Here it is a very interesting shade. It is pinkish red. That is, it goes as a slightly pinkish shade. And I'll take the dark cadmium yellow or any other yellow color. This is for mixing later. So, where do we start? So, we also need a thinner paint. I have thinner number 4. Basically, this thinner helps paint dry faster. The thinner comes with a desiccant in the composition, so we add a little thinner and make such a mess, the consistency of liquid sour cream. That is, look, so as not to overdo it, so that the paint does not become too liquid. Of course, not to be too thick. Now, what are we going to do? I am applying this particular red-orange color. I will tint first inside, then outside. How will we apply toning? Tinting is applied in stripes. In principle, the stripes are chaotic, while you can apply as if not observing a certain pattern. I will do this from above, grabbing this part outside. It should be painted neatly. At the same time, I lower the paint down. Now I will distribute it like this. I captured the gap, carefully stretching it down. Then we blend it a little so that there are no obvious strokes. So what do we do next? Gently apply strokes on this side. Both lateral and upper, there are such veins on the tulip. So, coloring can be applied both on a dry petal and on a completely dried one. Not quite dry, of course. If you have it lying down and has dried up a little, then you can safely apply tint. So what do we do next? I wipe off the brush and gently blend it now. Drop the color. Then we will apply brighter shades, more saturated. That is, we need this saturated color to make a color transition into smoother shades. Look, it is almost disappearing. Semi-dry brush. So, that is, we carefully draw with an almost dry brush and get weak strokes. It's the same here. Now we can take a thicker paint and apply strokes on top. Where you have generally become weak, where we have shaded strongly, there you can reapply strokes. To intensify the color. So, the same thing here. So now look what can be done. Not necessarily to do one such color spot. We apply a vein like this. Apply a vein here with gentle movements. In this way. Look. Now, what do we do next? We take the thinner again. Now add the thinner to the red quinacridone and add some yellow paint there. In order not to make it so pronounced pink, where we do it in such warm colors. We do it in such warm colors. Just a little more. Let's dilute. Let's see what happens. Over the red-orange color, we will apply more saturated strokes. We take a small amount and apply. See? The same thing. Above. How to apply? To see the color transition from saturated red to light orange. You are trying to make a two-color tint. It turns out. So, it's the same on this side. You need to apply separate strokes of color. So, here, look, like this. You can do like this. We'll probably leave it that way for now. Now watch what we do next. Turn the petal over. Wipe off the brush and take again a red-orange tint and apply strokes to them on the back side. Rather, this is the outer side. Starting again from the very edge of the petals, grabbing the top like this and gently lower the strokes down. In this case, the shading goes better already outside. As if the outside. There are more pronounced veins, the drawing itself, and the paint lays down a little differently. In this way you can do several stages. Strokes. Some were thinner, some were wider. It is already wider. Look, as you like best, as fantasy allows, or the pattern by which you make such veins. So, try not to spoil the tab. There where we do not need to paint because if the paint gets on your fingers, just wipe. See what happens. You can grab here with the edge. Now, wipe off the brush again. We take a saturated color. gently take the petal. It doesn't catch. And we begin to leave the strokes on the red-orange color, wiggling more saturated color. So, you can emit it a little lower in this figure. So now from this side, with another. That is, look, the transition from a warmer color, orange, to a more saturated one. Or vice versa. So now, I'll add more here. The paint is dry, you can add a little thinner now. These are the strokes at the base. The base of the petal, of course. Look, you get this kind of toning. Here is the outside, here is the inside. The inner one is a little more difficult to paint because there are more bands and the brush goes not go very evenly and not very easily. The outer side is easier to paint. What are we doing now? We need to leave this petal to dry out. Let the paint dry. If you have a desiccant in a spray, then it's generally fine. You can immediately process the petals to fix the paint and it dries much faster. If you don't have it, then we just leave it for a few days. If the paint is without desiccant at all, then it can dry for 2-3 days, applied with a very thick layer. If the paint, for example, with a thinner, like mine, with a dryer, then in principle it dries up in a day. That's it. Now we'll tint the next petal. I'll show you all the same. Let's see a slightly different color, a different shade. Toning will differ mainly in strokes, the size of the strokes and the location of the veins themselves. We will tint a little differently. We start with hue from the inside, and toning goes on top again. We tint the top first, grab and drag down the paint. We stretch it and at the same time give the desired appearance of the veins. That is, at the top there is a more intense color, and at the bottom the paint is stretched. So the main thing is to clearly see how I do it. I will try to show you all this. So the inner part can be done not from the very beginning, but toning. Such veins. Rather, these are not even streaks, but such strokes. Drawing in the form of strokes. So, here we paint a little side color. So, gently pulling the paint down. Probably on top will make the color more intense. Here you can grab the top. So, and this part. Let's do it like that. Let's select the central vein a bit. Now from top to bottom, a couple of such strokes. That is, in a chaotic manner. So now we take a different shade, a darker pink red, and go over our orange red from above. In principle, we do everything the same. Neat strokes. So, Here we'll make a brush stroke so that they stand out against the orange background. You can still apply such a smear. So, here you can smear from the bottom up. So, here are the side veins and the bottom ones. So, here's what you get. Now turn the petal over and hold it on the reverse side like this. First, naturally in red-orange color. Again, start at the top. Capturing here. Here is a small dent, so that we can paint it. So, now let's add some thinner. So I added the thinner so that the paint was not so thick. And now we apply. Look what strokes I do. I try to grab only with the tip of the brush. And we apply with such light movements. So, side 1. Here's a little bit like this. So, here is the band, so now we'll paint it a little inside and lower the paint down. So, here it was also painted inside. The edge was captured, a little of it too, from the outside, from the front. Let's capture. I have my fingers here. So, probably it is enough. Now we take a different color. Again, we apply it starting from the top. So, here. A little bit here. So, you can make such thin strips. And here's a little like this. Hands get dirty while I hold. And here too, let's go through a rich shade. Well, look what color it turns out. See? Yes. A little different completely. The streaks and staining are located in different ways. You can also show your fantasy and fantasize, arrange the veins as you want. Of course, to be harmonious and beautiful. That's all. Well, further toning of all other petals. And then, of course, the entire tulip assembly after drying the petals. Yes, and I completely forgot one nuance of toning. We would like to protonate to the very base of the petals with yellow. Of course, initially it had to be done very first thing. First, tint with yellow, then apply the colors. Well, no big deal, we'll do it at the end. If you are just watching the video, you have not started making petals yet, then before you start toning the veins, you can tint with yellow paint. Or as I in the end. This is not critical. What are we doing? Look, I take the yellow paint. I apply a small amount with a brush. Let's take a napkin now. We won't even use a thinner. We can even do without a brush. Gently, just like that, with an almost semi-dry brush, lightly, you can wipe it dry on a napkin and apply here at the base, yellow, shading it. Up. Not much at all. That is, we are not doing it too high. Just a little bit. We make the slight yellow tint at the base of the petals. Of course, they come in different petals, but since I model exactly the Rembrandt variety and this flowering, these petals have such a yellow base. And we will tint the outside after we completely collect the flower. Tone a little, capturing the yellow and all, and this is where we will end. That's all. Now we do the same with the rest of the petals, and we will already collect them into a complete composition.